Thursday, November 10th, 2022, and this meeting is being held in Town Hall Room number 133. At this point, I would please ask everyone to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we're going to ask all the commissioners to please introduce themselves, starting with my far left, gentleman on the end.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Gerald Pratt, regular member.
Andrew Kame, secretary.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Lushendra Komar, vice chairman.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Thank you. At this point, the chair would entertain a motion to table item number 8B. It's come to my attention that this item's on the agenda, but the person that was going to help speak to this issue is not present, the land use director, so we need a little more time. Do we have anyone interested in
Mr.
that?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we table item 8B until such time as we have the appropriate individuals present to speak to that issue.
Thank you. Do we have a second to that motion?
A second.
Mr. Komar has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. Next item up is public hearings. First item up is item A, 1 Sandcut Road, Z-22-61. Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. So now I will read to you the introduction to a public hearing for tonight, November 10th, 2022. This is a regular meeting of the Brookfield Zoning Commission. At this point in our agenda, we have scheduled a public hearing concerning the application of Tanner Michelli for BJG Sandcut LLC, Blue Jeans Golf LLC, 3,333 Lee Parkway, Suite 460, Dallas, Texas. Managing member. Application Z-22-61 for special permit application with design review to operate a limited service restaurant as an accessory use to existing golf course in the I-1HO zone. First, as per our protocol, let me introduce the members of the commission present here this evening, and actually I'll ask you all to please bear with me and do it again one more time.
Kurt Timmerman, alternate.
Gerald Pratt, regular member.
Andrew Kame, secretary.
Gary Getz, chair.
Lushendra Komar, vice chair.
Phoebe Holmes, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Thank you. We will open this public hearing by calling upon the commission secretary to please read the legal notice of this hearing.
Town of Brookfield, Brookfield, Connecticut. News Times Legals, Amy Curran, Land Use Administrative Assistant, October 14th, 2022, publication. Please publish the following legal notice on October 28th, 2022 and November 7th, 2022. Notice is hereby given. The Town of Brookfield Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on November 10th at 7 p.m. at Town Hall, 100 Pocono Road, room 133, regarding application number Z-22-61, 1 Sandcut Road by BJG Sandcut LLC of Dallas, Texas, for a special permit with design review for a limited service restaurant as accessory use to existing golf course in the I-1HO zone. At this hearing, interested persons may appear and be heard, and written correspondence or written communications received. Files are available for inspection at the town hall. Dated October 14th, 2022. Gary Getz, chairman.
Thank you. This application was formally received by the commission on September 27th, 2022. The public hearing is only one aspect of the approval process, and it is for the purposes of accepting factual information and data bearing on this application and to allow expression of opinion by interested parties. Subsequent to this hearing, The Commission has 65 days in which to render a decision on this proposal. The final decision may be in the form of approved as submitted, approved with stipulations, or denied. After reading into the record the correspondence received by the Commission relative to this application, we will ask the applicant to present the application in detail. The presentation will be limited to 45 minutes. The Chair will then entertain questions of clarification concerning the applicant's presentation. We will hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the application, followed by those who are opposed. Comments must be limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public will have one opportunity to speak during this segment of the hearing and may also submit their concerns in writing during the public hearing. During this segment, the commissioners may ask additional questions. The bylaws of the Commission allow only for the presentation of similar positions in succession and preclude the intermixture of comments pro or con. All questions and comments must be directed through the Chair. As you are recognized, please state your name and address so that your comments may be legally recorded. Please be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. However, the Commission is most interested in hearing factual information relative to the application, and in view of the time constraints placed upon us, we ask your indulgence in not reiterating comments previously presented. After the public comments are received, the applicant will then have the opportunity to comment, and time will then be limited to 10 minutes. Are there any questions? We shall now ask the Secretary to proceed with the reading of correspondence.
Okay, we have a comment sheet for application number Z22-61, 1 Sandcut Road Design Review and Special Permit Limited Service Restaurant. The fire marshal submitted a comment that the FMO will need to review building plans. Fire marshal's office will need to review building plans when prepared before the permit is issued. Police Department, Captain Peter Frangs, the Police Department has no objections or concerns regarding the proposed limited service restaurant at Golf Quest. The WPCA indicated on September 29th that the property is not connected to the sewer. This is a notice on October 25th, 2022 to the Town of Brookfield Zoning Commission that this is to notify the abutting property owners were notified. Dear abutting property owners, is to notify the special permit application has been filed by BJC Land Cut LLC, whereas Blue Jeans Golf LLC is the property owner for the property located at 1 Sandcut Road. Purpose of the application is to allow a limited service restaurant for use for walk-up food and beverage service. Town of Brookfield will hold a public hearing on this application at November 10th, 2022. Public hearings open to all members. Responses may be mailed to the Brookfield, and that was issued from Tanner Mitchell, Blue Jeans Golf, along with a copy of the application for special permit design review.
Thank you. There's other things such as permit fees and things, but I don't believe we have to read those into the record, so that should be sufficient.
Okay.
Thank you. The Chair is now prepared to hear the applicant's presentation, so please feel free to step up to the podium. And again, we only ask that you state your name and address for the record.
Thank you.
You have 45 minutes.
Great. Keep it shorter than that. So, for the record, this is Michael Canfield with Blue Jeans Golf. My address is 768 Amsterdam Avenue, apartment 2N, New York, New York.
Sorry, I didn't catch the name of the street.
Sure, Amsterdam Avenue.
Amsterdam, thank you.
Great. So I'm here as one of the co-founders of Blue Jeans Golf. Also with me today is Brian Poniatowski. He's our head of transformation operations. So Blue Jeans Golf, we're kind of the ultimate owner. So we bought the property, we made the investment in it. Ryan is here as head of transformation operations. He's there on a daily basis. He's making sure all the operations run smoothly. You probably saw a lot of Dallas, Texas on the applications. That's where Blue Jeans Golf is based out of. Myself being in New York, I'm up at the site on almost a weekly basis, but Brian and the team on site, who are very talented, are the ones kind of keeping the train on the tracks on a regular basis. So, as mentioned, we're here requesting approval for a limited service restaurant use to include the sale of beer and wine as well. As a bit of background, so Blue Jeans Golf, our company, acquired Golf Quest back in November of 2021 from the prior owner who was retiring. As a result of our acquisition, we invested a substantial amount of money in predominantly cosmetic renovations. If anyone's been there, you can tell we redid the lobby, redid the front doors, moved the check-in desk, painted the T-line, added technology. What we've generally tried to do is bring a site that's been in the Brookfield community for 25 years into the future and ensure that it's here as kind of a recreational outlet for everyone for years and decades to come. I'd say so far we've been very impressed and happy with a positive kind of embrace from the local community. I think for us, we've obviously tried to upgrade the experience, generally bring kind of new life to the facility, and we've seen that based on the number of guests. In addition to that, we've rolled out a number of community programs. So we're sponsoring a local basketball team. We're providing discounts to local high school golf teams, including Brookfield. We provide youth and Parks and Rec instruction programs at the facility as well. So once again, taking an asset that was up for sale, but generally trying to make it, one, available and accessible for all, and then two, obviously a business that can kind of last and sustain itself into the future. For us, we're coming here to the Zoning Commission to request approval because we believe kind of now is the right time to go and invest in what we're calling kind of phase two. That's the ability for us to roll out a light food and beverage offering with beer and wine, be able to take that experience of people who are spending close to an hour there at a time, be able to take that, level it up a little bit more, and candidly provide an offering that we've had the majority of our guests actually request. So I'd say with that, I think for us, like, everything's been included in the kind of proposal and the paperwork that you all have received. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Once again, we're not going to do a large presentation here in this forum, but happy to answer any questions the Zoning Commission might have or the general public.
Well, first, does anyone have any questions of clarification? Does anyone on the commission have any questions or comments that they would like to make at this time? Mr. Timmerman,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome.
You mentioned about the beer and wine offerings, and I noticed they're self-serve. Do you have any more detail on what that entails?
So the actual offerings, the way the food and beverage will be serviced is via takeout window. So not self-serve, we'll always have a staff member there. That for us, obviously, making sure we have best practices around food and especially alcohol service is important. So from an operations perspective, not only Brian as our head of transformation operations, our number 2 on site, and then at Blue Jeans Golf, our head of operations, all have experience serving alcohol in different backgrounds. We know it's important, and for us, I think always having a Golf Quest staff member there serving the general public will obviously help from an alcohol service perspective.
Okay, well, thanks for the clarification. Because when it originally came in front, there was talk of self-serve alcohol, with a machine, but, okay.
Yes.
Be really popular.
We hope so. Thank you. We hope so.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay. Thank you. Does the audience have any questions of clarification before we go to comments pro or con? Okay, not hearing any. The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in favor of this application. No one has stood up, so we will go to the next portion. The chair is now prepared to recognize those who wish to speak in opposition to this application. Also seeing none, I guess at this point I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing, if that's the pleasure of the commission.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we close the public hearing at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, Darrell, but I'm going to defer to Commissioner Holmes, whose hand I saw go up.
That's good.
So,
Second. Thanks.
She seconded that motion. Is there any conversation or discussion further on this?
I had a question. Have we received all of the requisite approvals, permits, and everything else that's been through the entire process?
It has been.
And we're just at the final permit stage?
Yeah, then it will go to the building department once they submit their building application, correct?
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, well, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? No. The motion carries. I guess at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to either approve the application or otherwise.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, I would make a motion that we approve this application. We have received all of the requisite paperwork, and one outstanding question has been cleared up this evening. I see no reason to deny it any further or continue it any further. So I would make a motion that we approve this application Z-22-61.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Do we have a second to that motion? Thank you. Mr. Pratt, I would just ask if people speak up a little bit. Sometimes I don't see the winks and the nods and such, so. Okay, we have a second to that motion. All those, please signify by saying aye if you're in favor of the motion.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that application, that motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
So you folks are all set? Thank you very much. Next up, item number 3 is the review of minutes of the previous meeting. That was October 27th, 2022. Are there any comments, questions, or anything they'd like to see different on the minutes?
Thank you.
Any of the commissioners?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, please, Mike. Mr. Lucia.
In the conversation with Mr. Stout, it said, I wasn't the one who actually asked all the questions in that case. I'm not sure if it was, I feel like
It was me.
It was you, okay.
Yes.
Somebody else. Okay, so you noticed. Okay.
There's, I think, 2 episodes of that, right?
Okay.
But
Tell me what section that's in?
What is this page? Second to last page. Let's see, 10. Section 10. Towards the top of the second page of section 10.
And you want to read
Just,
Gary?
yeah, I think if Gary, I couldn't remember, but it does sound like it was, Gary thinks it was Gary, so that makes sense.
I'm not finding it now. It's difficult to find here.
On page 9?
This one?
Yeah, page 9.
Paragraph.
There's the page number.
Which paragraph?
Yeah, I
First
think so.
paragraph, first and
First
second. First, yeah, both.
Yeah, so I guess it's the second to the last page, or the last page, but the front of the last page.
Yeah, exactly.
The top paragraph where it says, in like the second or third sentence, Mr. Lucia asked how much fill was brought in. But I think you did ask that question. But I think what he's saying that I said was where it says, Mr. Lucia asked why Mr. Stout did not want silt fencing installed. I asked that question.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, I think there was another one. Then the next
The next
paragraph, it says,
too. Yeah, that one also.
Mr. Lucia asked if Mr. McGovern started this project because of the macro bursts. I think I will take that as well. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah,
Mike?
that sounds right.
Thank you.
And one minor comment, maybe if we numbered the pages, it would be easier
Oh,
for
it's-
us
it says
to
on the
identify
bottom.
things.
They are there.
Page numbers on the bottom,
Oh, right here, yeah.
the footer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I guess maybe it would be helpful if I read the pages. Any other comments? Not hearing from anyone else, I would only say that there's a couple of minor things. On page 3, second paragraph, it says, Chairman Getz asked the public if anyone wished to speak in favor of or in opposition to the application. It says no one was heard. I think in other usage, it's been phrased, no one came forward. I think that's probably more accurate and consistent.
Oh, okay.
And then about 1, 2, 3, 4,
Otherwise, I think we're all dead.
7 paragraphs down below that, it says Mr. Timmerman mad a motion. And it's not right that we would associate mad with Mr. Timmerman, so I think it's supposed to say made.
That was page 4?
Page
Page
3.
three.
Page
Oh, I'm
3,
sorry,
Yeah,
further down.
right down.
Further down on that.
right by where it says motion to approve.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then on page 6 of 10, there's paragraph, each one a line, and there's another one, then it's the third from the bottom up. First full paragraph where it says, the last sentence, but the assembly hall could not be used as a church. I think it just means to say not be used as a church. Page 8,
I'm having a hard time locating that one.
Right above.
Page 6 of 10.
Bottom at the bottom.
1, 2, 3, 3 paragraphs up from
Oh.
the bottom. Last line.
Got it. Thank you.
and again, these are all pretty minor, so I don't want to come across like I'm just picking it here. The third paragraph from the top on page 8, it says, Chairman Getz commented on the length of time this has been on the agenda. The item was assigned, I believe it should say assigned to Ms. Hagza. And then on the last page, 10, second paragraph, again, the word to, Ms. Hagza questioned whether the zoning commission truly had any power to regulate the location and construction of the tower. However, she offered to do additional research, I think.
I'm sorry, what page was that?
Last.
Last
10.
page, second line.
Again, minor stuff, but just want to be accurate. So having called for any comments, I think that was the last of them. Unless there's anything else, the chair would be happy to entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the meetings as amended.
Mr. Pratt's made a motion.
I would second that, a motion.
Mr. Kane has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those all in favor of accepting the minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none. That motion carries as well. Thank you. Next up, item number 4 is enforcement. I'm going to ask Mr. Lally to give the zoning enforcement officer's report at this time.
Sure. Few changes. 107 Stony Hill Road, the Nassau residence. He hasn't gotten his approval to move the vehicles out of the property yet due to the state of Connecticut having a seize on everything for whatever purpose it was, so. I did have a call into him today and I have not yet heard back, but I am continually monitoring that property right there. Again, 47 High Ridge Road, the Stallis residence. I mean, this is, the town attorney has this one. I'm not sure of an updated status on this. This is also on the blight enforcement report too. I can get an update on this at the next meeting, which will be next Wednesday, for the blight panel. Then I can update the report for the commission as December meeting. 107 Val Road, Jar Associates, the commission at the last meeting made a motion to send a notice of violation and a cease and desist order, which I did. And it is on the agenda for tonight. There is an applicant here present for that property, which is on the agenda for item 7C, which they'll be up in a bit. Cease and desist is 271 Federal Road. I did leave that on the agenda. I wasn't sure what the commission wanted to do. I know the commission upheld the cease and desist and denied the zone change, but I know there's was also an item on the agenda for tonight. So as of right now, they are using that property on Sundays, to my understanding. Building and fire are currently involved in the property now. As to an update on that, I do not know, but I do know, I believe fire would like to come in at the December, I think it's the 8th meeting, and explain their interpretation of the regulations for them, for the classification, I guess, for between assembly and church use. So that's going to be at the next December 8th meeting. That's my interpretation after speaking with the fire marshal yesterday, so. 31 Green Knoll Drive, the McGovern residence was the earthwork and grading. I know Rochelle Hadza, the land use director, presented the commission a letter last meeting. Mr. McGovern is present, was asked to be present at this meeting right here, and he is present. And once we're done, I will go to the podium and I will reread Rochelle Hadza's, the director's letter, since she is not present tonight. Again, 107 Val Road, again, the commission made the motion to go to do the notice of violation and cease and desist. So I basically copy and pasted everything right there, which is the same as the information that was on the original notice of violation. And then 89 Wisconsin Road, I have a court date next Friday on that, at Danvers Superior Court again, on that property.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Do any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Lally at this time?
Yeah, what happens when you keep going back to court all these times? They don't like settle it, or?
I'm hoping after this right here, this is done, so.
Well, good, Fran,
And
good.
then with
Good luck.
regards to growing seeds, that would continue to next year. The growing
Okay.
seeds, that's the daycare one.
Yes,
So
Good update.
the attorney for the applicants that filed the lawsuit, their attorney wasn't prepared, so they asked for continuance till next year. I think it's in January, so that's gonna be continued to next year, so.
good to
that's
hear
con-
it.
That's continuing, so,
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you.
On your
Yep.
next court date.
yep, so,
Thank you. If I may, I did have one question as a follow-up from last time.
yes.
I think there was a property on 11 Candlewood Acres that had a storage container. I was just curious if we know at this time if they had it
That has
removed.
been removed, that
Yes?
was, yes,
All right,
that's
thank
why I
you.
did remove it from the enforcement report.
Thank you.
Yep. And now I'll address the commission regarding 31. Again, I'm gonna reiterate what Rochelle Hadza, the land use director, had sent to the commission October 12, 2022. I'm gonna streamline some of it, but, so you all have the copy of the document and stuff, and I will give Mr. McGovern a copy of it also. But it basically indicates that, filling of more than 100 cubic yards of material in a residential zone within 1 year, constructing a second driveway without approval, depositing material in the Aquifer Protection District without a permit or agent determination, which I believe Rochelle Hadza had mentioned at the last meeting. She was the administrative assistant for that due to the fact that she holds the wetland certification through DEEP. And like I said, I'm going to streamline some of the information here. Such activity is strictly prohibited without a permit from the Brookfield Zoning Commission or its duly authorized agent. Regulations regarding filling and grading or earthworks of any kind are found in the Brookfield zoning regulations, section 6, which she had copied and pasted on the letter regarding the certain regulations which govern the activities that Mr. Govan had undertaken and ramped up after he was made aware of the land use office was beginning enforcement actions. In addition to the zoning violations, Mr. McGovern had violated the aquifer protection regulations of the town of Brookfield adopted 10/24/14, effective 12/18/14. As you know, the zoning commission is the aquifer protection agency per town code, chapter 5. In my capacity, and this is Ms. Hadza, not mine, as the APA designated staff member, I recommend that the actions of that Mr. McGovern be dealt with separately by the agency. The purpose of the APA regulation is in part to regulate land use activity within the aquifer protection area, including prohibiting certain new activities, 1A3, such as depositing of fill in unknown source, or indeed many different sources, may have consequences directly addressed by APA regulations, but not the zoning regulations. The following regulation from Section 4, prohibited regulated activities, is relevant. Any person proposing to carry out a non-regulated activity as set forth in Section 4C of these regulations in the aquifer protection area shall, prior to commencement of such activity, notify the agency or its duly authorized agent on a form provided by the agency. Such form shall provide sufficient information to enable the agency or its duly authorized agent to properly determine that the proposed activity is a regulated activity or non-regulated activity within the aquifer protection area. Again, this is by Rochelle Hadza. It is in my view, that Mr. Govern has done to the land, especially in a residential area where people bought homes because of the unique tranquility offered by mature woods perched on impossible steep ledges, is the unfortunate reason that the enforcement must exit and must be swiftly dispatched. So, and this is from Rochelle Hadza, Land Use Director, dated October 12, 2022, addressed to members of the Brookfield Zoning Commission and the Aquifer Protection Agency.
Thank you. At this time, do any commissioners have any comments or questions for Mr. Lally? Thank you, Mr. Lally. At this time, I will ask if Mr. McGovern would like to come forward to address that issue at 31 Green Knoll Drive that's just been outlined. And please, again, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott McGovern. Address 31 Green Knoll Drive, Brookfield, Connecticut, 06804. Sorry, guys.
Please.
So,
proceed.
I'm, only at this moment being made aware of the information, or Ms. Hodsa's letter. I did previously receive the notice to cease and desist that was mailed to me. So it did mention in there the Aquifer Protection District. So I've got a couple of concerns. And so, my last time here, I mentioned that I'd been to the Planning and Zoning Office prior, that they had checked GIS mapping, and that they had assured me that I was not on wetlands, that there was no issue, that I could perform filling and grading. When this began, when when this was brought to my attention again this year, I again went back in and talked to Ms. Hadza directly. She made no mention of any other issue, that the Aquifer Protection District was an issue with what I was doing. I showed her a map of what it was that we were planning to do. She saw the map. We have email communications where I invited her and Mr. Lally to come out. Mr. Lally was on vacation at that point. I said, as soon as he gets back, if you guys want to come out to the house, tell me what I'm doing. So, there's a couple of charges in there that I would take incident to, that I ramped up what I was doing based on enforcement. That's patently false. I did not ramp up. As a matter of fact, the exact opposite would be true. I didn't do anything for 2 weeks, waiting for any word from Ms. Hadza, who had already told me that if there was an issue, she would contact me again. That is in the email communications that she sent me, that if there was any issue, that she would contact me. And I responded back, I welcome you out here. Just tell me anything that you would like to see or what you'd like to know. There was no mention of any of that up until I received this letter just a week and a half ago.
If I may, I don't mean to interrupt, but you're referring to what letter?
The cease and desist letter that I
Oh,
was
okay.
sent to come here
Thank you.
tonight. But up until that point, there was no mention of the Aquifer Protection District Act. As I said, I did notice that that was in there, and so I did familiarize myself with it, and I'm still not entirely sure that I understand, and I would like potentially somebody can help me to understand what part of that document or regulation that I have infringed upon. From what I can see after reading through the 9-page document, I can't find the area, so if somebody could just tell me what part of that regulation applies to me so that I can better understand exactly what's being asked of me, I would appreciate that. I'm not sure if I can ask that of the commission. I'm not sure if this is only a
I
one-way
think we would
presentation. I
need to
apologize, I'm
review
not
it
familiar with
perhaps
this.
more thoroughly, but it's more that you present to us and then we'll ask you questions.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't want to read it here, but as a summation, rules, activities that are prohibited, salt storage, manufacturing, warehousing, on-site disposal. C is on-site disposal of toxic or hazardous contaminants. D is truck terminals, depots, yards. E is sanitary landfills, junkyards. F is contractor yards. G is motor vehicle service and washing facilities. H is about boat repair. I, disposal of snow. J, uses other than standard domestic waste generated on the site discharged into the groundwaters. K, underground storage of fuel and other flammables. L is etching. And M, unless specifically regulated by the Department of Environmental Protection, prohibited by the State of Brookfield Health Department, the storing of hazardous substances. So those are the specific prohibited guidelines in there, but none of which that I can understand that I have somehow.
If I may, I'll take a stab at
validated.
it. I think when you were here before, you gave us testimony that you didn't know what was in there.
So this,
when the stuff was dumped
only
off.
mentioned in the, oh,
No, but this stuff that you accepted, we asked how much it was, you said you didn't know, you said you didn't know exactly what it was, and so that's the presumption, it could be any of those things that you just delineated.
I just had a quick question for you. Could you just go back and read that section in there? I don't have a copy of what it is you're reading
Yes, sir.
from. But I did hear you mention something about disposing of landfill material
let me-
in an aquifer protection zone.
so disposal of.
That'd be 5.4.
On-site disposal of toxics, hazardous, contaminant, or industrial waste. So not disposed of any waste of any sort.
I'm sorry, but didn't we ask you before if the soil had been tested, and you told us you didn't know?
So what I specifically had brought in was what was considered clean fill. When you asked me if I'd had it tested as it was coming in, I did state that I was not aware that that was a requirement, that I had to be testing the clean fill. The agreement that I had with the contractor was for clean fill, which I didn't have any reason to think that it was not clean fill that I was getting.
I also recall that we asked you if you had any bills or paperwork from the people who delivered the fill, and you indicated that you didn't have any paperwork from them.
I don't have any specific paperwork. Wasn't anything that I had.
Mr. Chair? Yes, Mr. Pratt, please.
So did you pay for the material to be brought to your house? Or is it just free?
I did not have to pay very much for it.
You still had to pay for it.
It was relative, yeah. It was,
How did they base the price? Just threw a number at you, or they had to count how much is coming in to give you?
no,
I assume.
quite honestly, it was not that way. So there were some trucking fees that I had to pay, but for the material itself, it was that little to no cost because it is just clean fill. It's not topsoil or something that's. So I will stop there.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Timmerman, please, go ahead.
You had mentioned you had a contract with them. Is this an oral contract, a written contract? I mean, obviously, they didn't meet their contract if there was construction debris falling out of the fill. I mean, that would
So-
help with the paperwork part.
I guess that's another thing that I would like some clarification on is, and I could not find it in my research, is the definition of construction debris in Brookfield regulations.
If I may, I thought the question was, did you have a written contract? Would you mind addressing the
apologize.
question from the commissioner?
Yes, sir. I don't have a formal written contract with the contractor.
I just had a follow-up question to that. You stated that that it's clean fill. How do you know that it's clean fill if you didn't have a contract?
I don't know exactly how to give you the answer that you, on that. I would not know if it was clean fill either way with a contract or not, other than that I was assured that it was clean fill as it was coming in.
Or if it was tested?
Short of testing. But if testing was a requirement, there was not anything that at any point, at any visit, and even in my last visit here, which afterwards I spoke to Mr. Lawley about this, I haven't done anything, just waited to find out what the direction was and what the guidance was, what was needed of me. At no point have I been directed to or requested to test. And if that was a requirement along the way, I was unable to find that in the zoning regulations. And and it's not been a request that's been made of me after several visits to the zoning office. No point did they say, stop and test first, and then, we'll get back together.
If I may just interrupt you, they would not do that. You're not the one that's required to do the testing. The person providing the fill is the one that's required to do the testing and certify to you and in writing that they've met the requirements for clean fill. So it's not something that you would do. Your contractor would do that.
Fair. It's just, at no point in any visit has anybody said, hey, this is an expectation, if you're bringing something in, make sure your contractor has done that and then provides you that. At no point was that an issue, and I was very clear, even when I was at the visit at the office, what I was doing, where it was coming from, what I was bringing in.
Mr. Chair. Mr.
Go ahead.
McGovern, thank you. Mr. McGovern, would you be able to let us see the emails between you and Fran and Ms. Hadza when you said that you had emails
I
with
felt
them?
that those were a matter of record already. If
Oh,
they
they
are
were?
not, I would be
Okay.
more than willing to
Just
do so.
wondered if you had them with
Absolutely.
you
Are they
to-
not part of
to
the
see the-
current record?
See
Well,
them?
we have, they're not in the file, but they're a record. I mean, there's.
But if I
there's-
may.
They're there.
I felt
This-
like that already was part of
Wasn't
the
this
record.
discourse now taking place after the fact, though? Wasn't the fill
Oh,
all
absolutely,
brought
yeah.
in?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I don't
Oh,
see how
absolutely.
relevant that is to whether it was tested and whether it was the right amount. If this was already done, and we're talking about enforcement action after the act was already committed. So I hear what you're saying about asking for stuff, but you had already done the act that we're discussing.
So,
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the paperwork there, just as expand upon it slightly. I think in one of the previous meetings with us, you indicated that the previous land use officer, Alice Dew, had given you permission to do this. We asked the land use office to research to see if there was any correspondence at all, either in writing or electronically, between you and Alice Dew, and there was none.
correct.
Okay.
And I believe I stated that in the last time I was here. I went to the office, and she was the one that introduced me to the GIS system. She checked for wetlands. She showed me how to use that website. Prior to that, I was not aware of that system at all. But she had checked for any other regulations that would have been an issue. Showed me how to see the property maps where the lines and that sort of thing were. But that was an in-person visit. If I might.
And that's accessed through the website, Brookfield
Yes.
zoning website?
Exactly,
Okay.
with property cards to the GIS mapping software, and that's, she had shown me that in the office that day, and she had looked for wetlands, and, there's wetlands on the other side of the road, and she had told me that behind, like, the Janowski's house is wetlands over there, and it illustrated to me that there was no wetlands there, there was no, and Ms. Hudza had done the same thing when I went to visit her again this year, had pulled up the GIS mapping and had also checked to see if there was wetlands, or she told me that she had after Mr. Stout's visit to the office, and that there was no issues, and I spoke to her about the number of trees. She said there's nothing regulating any of the trees. She told me directly that I could take down as many trees as I wanted to, that there was nothing specifically regulated on the property. And I apologize if those email communications are not there, and that's why I wanted to make sure that they were in email communications.
That
Would like
state-
to
I'm
just-
sorry, just that statement that you could take down as many trees as you wanted, was that communicated to you through email?
I don't know if that was in the email specifically, but that was
If
something
so, I
that
would
her
be
and I
very
talked
much
about in the
interested in
office.
seeing that one.
Mr. Chairman, just a
Mr.
clarification
Chairman,
on
go ahead.
the regulations. The Chapter 5 to which Ms. Hasta refers is actually Chapter 5 of the Town Code, the Charter, not Chapter 5 of our zoning regs. There's a separate aquifer protection, what do they call it, agency that is part of the other part of the Town Code. So,
I believe that I have that. It's 5-27, 242 to 502. I believe that that's what I was able to locate, and that's what I was reading from what those bullet points were.
I think
because
the
those bullet points are in our actual regs, 5.4 Brookfield Aquifer Protection District. But there's, what she pulled out as a portion of that reg was actually on, not in our regs, but in the aquifer protection regs.
I think the point of the, I'm sorry. Mayor.
No, just so if, if you're reading the regs, there's more than just ours. There's another set for this other agency. Even though we're the town agency tasked with enforcing them, there's another whole agency that's tasked with interpreting them.
I think I just want to make a point. That's the point I was trying to make. I think she was informing you of the fact that the zoning commission is the aquifer protection enforcement agency for the town of Brookfield. That was the point of that comment, Terry.
How can I go about getting a copy of that specific?
That is
regulation?
also on
It's online.
the town web. So if you go to the main page and you go to town charter and ordinances, it's under there. And you'll see all the chapters, chapter 5 being the aquifer protection chapter, called Aquifer Protection Agency, chapter 5.
And all the zoning regulations are also online.
Okay. So,
This time, is there anything
just
else
one
you
other
want to
thing, I
add?
do want to make a point of
Please
clarification.
do summarize.
One of the things that you had said was, at that point, everything had already been brought in. Earlier, when we were talking about that the damage was done. So,
I don't believe I said that the damage was done, but I think you
I
were trying
apologize. I'm
to
paraphrasing.
say that you were asking for guidance about how to do it, and it was my understanding that if not all of it, almost all of it had already been delivered, that being the fill that you placed in the property.
that was just what I wanted to make a point of clarification on. For this year, we started on June 9th. My visit to the office here was June 24th. Like I said, we stopped for about 2 weeks, and we didn't resume. We didn't stop bringing in any dirt, or we finished the grading work all the way on July 25th, which is a full month after I'd come into the office. And again, I waited until, what I understood, Mr. Lawley was on vacation until July 5th. We waited until that week, and then another probably 5 or 6 days before we did anything else after inviting them out to come and just tell me what we needed to do before I finished off with the plan that I presented in that email communication. She had lifted the cease and desist and said that I could continue on, and if there was another issue, that she would get back. That one of the two of them would communicate with me directly.
I think she terminated the cease and desist order because she was not empowered to issue it, and Mr. Lawley was empowered to issue it, and that's why it was terminated. It wasn't consent.
Well, just to-
It wasn't consent to,
Sure, I'll just
continue with
defer
your
to the
activity.
email if we can get that added into the record from those communications. And my responses back as well, inviting them out.
Sure.
I just
please.
have 2 more questions. How many truck loads of fill did you bring in?
As I answered last time, I don't have a specific number for you.
And when did you start bringing the truckloads in? What was the first day that the truck delivered the material to the site?
Ever? Again, I believe that I gave you an estimate last time, and I would do the same thing based off of the images that I gave you, which would have been on or around February of 2019.
Okay. And just one more question. Did at any time you apply for a building permit to do any of this work?
I did not, sir.
I don't have any questions.
And just a point of clarification, because you kind of put a finer point on it. So would you say that the bulk of the fill that was delivered was after you spoke to Mrs. Hotza? Is that what you were driving at? Or why don't you characterize it yourself? How
No.
much would you say it was compared to the totality? A quarter of it? 3/4 of it? 'Cause you kind of wanted to make the point that you
Yeah.
had so much more that you delivered.
It sounded almost like, and it does in her letter as well, that in some way I was disregarding the authority and that I had ramped up, or that I had intended to rush things through. And the point I was trying to make is in fact quite the opposite. Every time I've spoken to anybody here or at Town Hall, I've paused or waited. And again, I have not done anything since the last time that I spoke to you folks, because again, a good citizen of this town. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I was, certainly I had an objective to you know, make our backyard more usable, not, of course, I didn't have any malcontent in mind as I was going through this. We've been here 7 years.
Excuse me, if I may though, I was asking you, how much of the totality of that fill would you say it was that you did after you said you paused for 2 weeks? And in the letter it says that you kind of sped it up, but you said you didn't, but then you said, no, actually you did have a lot more fill delivered, so.
I didn't have a lot
What
more
was the
fill delivered,
percentage of-
maybe an eighth or a tenth of the totality. It was,
So most of the
That
fill
point
was
we were-
delivered then, so that point is correct, right?
no, 1/8 is in, 9/8 or 7/8 was already in. At
Right.
that point,
So that means most, right? Overwhelmingly, most of it was already in.
are you asking me how much was brought in afterwards or beforehand?
Well, you seem to imply that the position was that all the damage was done and that you did bring in more, so I was trying to ask you how much more you brought in, and now you're saying 1/10, so most of it was already brought in, correct?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Does anyone
Chair?
else have any further questions?
I do.
Ms. Holmes?
Are you able to get a letter or any type of proof or correspondence from the contractor that brought the fill about the quality of the fill and what's in the fill?
I can
Does
look
the
into
Does
that.
the company still exist
It does.
for the person?
I can look into that.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there any thoughts about how to proceed at this point?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think the operative thing here is that there was no building permit obtained. A significant amount of work was done on the property. In fact, the property was completely reshaped, far above the 100 yards that is normally allowed for minor grading of a residential property. It is in the aquifer protection zone, which is incredibly disturbing due to the fact that the nature of the fill is unknown. I think the fact that the fill was provided for essentially free speaks to the quality of the fill. Having purchased fill myself and loam and topsoil for my property, it's not inexpensive and it does come certified. So I think that this situation is going to have to be corrected. And that's my comments at this point.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think
Mr. Timmerman.
in addition to some sort of remediation, a professional should be brought on board or hired to verify that, things are being done properly. Because this is such a large operation, beyond the 100 yards in aquifer protection, steep slopes, that it would behoove us to know that we can trust a professional engineer of the likes of a CCA or someone similar to that, in order for us to have professional tell us what is proper.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments?
I would add to Mr. Timmerman's comments, because I think at this point what we have is a remediation project, not simply a removal project, because of the nature of the aquifer and the fact that we do have rainwater leaching through the current soil and draining into the aquifer. We do have considerations beyond simply removing the soil. So it is I shouldn't say soil, I should say the fill. So that as that's being removed, the aquifer would not be damaged, and the adjacent property owner's property would not be damaged. And I think testing is in order because obviously water leaches through this stuff, it ends up in groundwater, which ends up in wells.
So at this time, I guess the chair is prepared to entertain a motion from the commission that we either seek guidance or we ask the land use office to recommend the remediation methodology that needs to be employed, which should include outside experts, certification of soil samples, etc. Is that fair
Yeah.
summary of that?
Yeah, I think it is. I think the starting point, though, is that the zoning enforcement officer issue a letter indicating that the fill is to be removed, appropriate building permits are to be obtained, and whatever other aquifer protection measures are commonly used in situations like this. I know we have several situations in the town where we have pollution situations and blight situations, and I'm not an expert in that, unfortunately, but I do think that has to be addressed. Mr. Timmerman's comments are very valid about the way that this is removed due to the nature of the stuff that's been put in there. And but I think the starting point is that a notice be given to remove and restore the property to its original condition subsequent to, building permits and plans that are gonna have to be submitted to do that.
It may be asking a little bit much of you, but could you re-summarize all that in a motion that is all-encompassing, or is that a lot?
Well, I will attempt to do that. I would make a motion that the zoning commission direct the zoning enforcement officer to issue a letter to the property owner requiring that the fill be removed and that the proper permits be obtained, and that a plan of testing and remediation be followed to accomplish this.
Thank you. Mr. Kim has made a motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
I have a question about the motion, if I may.
Okay.
Shouldn't we have it tested before we require the remediation, or shouldn't we have like the test in hand?
Well,
What?
I would agree with you if we were under the 100 yard thing, but we have had a massive amount of stuff in here, and based on a simple observation of the quality of the fill, it far exceeds the amount that would be allowed. The testing, I think, is simply to ensure the aquifer protection. The fill will have to be removed. I don't think the two are, we're concerned about additional pollution into the aquifer protection zone.
Right. I just wondered who's paying for the testing? Also, who pays for that?
I think
Is
we
that
have
the
a
whole-
motion
is
on
that
the
homeowner?
floor, and the discussion usually follows a second.
Okay.
And in all due respect, I don't know that it's our concern who pays for it. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Mr. Komar has seconded Mr. Kane's motion. Now, is there any other discussion?
Commissioner,
Yeah, Mr.
I know
Pratt.
Ms. Holmes as well. If we remove this, how much more damage is that gonna cause too? Because if it's not removed properly, that could also leach into our aquifer, into our well system. So, yeah, I'd be concerned that way as well. Maybe a professional could get involved and help that.
Yeah, I concur, and I think that needs to be a part of the plan, as Mr. Timmerman indicated, and this is to be done professionally. This is not something that can be done by,
Yeah,
Well,
they might say we have
Some
to test
uncertain.
first.
I also think that it would be great to see the test results, that the commission needs to see those when
So
they
you want to
look at
modify
them.
the motion
But-
to include that?
I
that we
don't know,
see
I'm
it?
still thinking about it.
well, I think it's
don't
in the
know.
motion. I think we made that motion.
I think
too.
it's in there. It just seemed like we were putting the cart before the horse, just saying it's gotta be removed.
Well,
And then
my
it's
understanding.
like, you know what I mean? I
My
just-
understanding is that any remediation plan includes testing, before testing,
Before
after testing,
The remediation,
before and after testing, yes,
fair.
and during.
Good.
Testing sites have to be set up as part of that process. From my understanding, again, I'm not a remediation contractor, but I think the land use office would be able to provide more information on that.
Any other commissioner questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Next item up on the agenda is item 5, review correspondence. There is none to review, so we'll move on to number 6. Similarly, under old business, there is none. So therefore, we will go on to item number 7, new business. A as in Alpha, 10 Huckleberry Hill Road, Z-22-63. Dick Murchison of Greenwich YMCA, 2 Huckleberry Hill Road, Brookfield, Connecticut, for Regional YMCA of Western Connecticut. Marie Mizuski, member, 2 Huckleberry Hill Road, Brookfield, Connecticut. Site plan modification for 2 6-foot 6-inch by 14-foot 8-inch restrooms to be added to the campground. Is the applicant here?
Dick Murchison, 2 Huckleberry Hill Road, representing the YMCA.
Thank you.
What we're looking to do is put in 2 pre-built concrete lavatories and get rid of the porta potties, so to speak, during a camp session. These are roughly 7 by 15. They're precast. They're 1,000-gallon concrete with polyethylene liners. They hold, like I said, 1,000 gallons, roughly 1,500 usages, okay? And we would have it pumped every 2 weeks during camping season. That's the only time they will be used, from roughly May 30th through September 2nd to the 3rd of the year.
Okay. Did you want to add anything further?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't know if I'm good, but I'm okay.
You look good to me. Would any of the commissioners like to make any comments or questions? Mr. Zimmerman, please go ahead.
Is there gonna be any excavation to put this, semi-portable potty, or non-portable potty? Or is it just sits on?
It's a permanent structure,
Per-
yes.
okay.
They come in, they do the foundations per code, local codes, okay? It's a concrete, structure over crushed stone with stone on the sides, and we will surround it in shrubbery. Where these 2 will set are in a heavily wooded area, okay? So they're not gonna be that visible, especially from any roads. But we will have the children, the campers, they'll know where they are. The main thing, we want to get rid of them. Yeah.
There's no leaching with this, right? This is a self-contained
No leaching,
tank?
Self-contained.
And where's the tank? Is it below, or?
The tank is a 1,000-gallon tank under the base.
Okay.
Okay, you can see it on the third page. Oop, no, I'm sorry. It's on the first page. It's a Gunnison. We will go with the Gunnison. It's right next to the picture of the Gunnison. The Gunnison single vault standard features includes polyethylene lined concrete vault, barnwood textured walls, cedar shake textured roof, offloaded and set up on site.
So you would pour a pad for this and
Crushed stone.
crushed stone, you said? Okay.
Well, no, the pad is underneath the vault.
Oh,
Okay.
so
It's
it's,
a 1,000-gallon.
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
It's a septic tank in the ground with no holes.
Modern latrine.
Yeah.
If I, just for
Yes,
reference,
please.
these things are used like at national parks and stuff. That's what, they're all over the place, things like that.
Yeah, I checked with the sanitation, just to make sure before we even started looking at this, and he said that's not a problem.
Oh, yeah, no,
And WPCA doesn't have any problem with this either. I don't think they would because they're not.
I'm sorry.
WPCA. Yeah, because we're not doing any sewers. Okay.
It's expensive.
Any other commissioners have comments or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
Just
Cohen.
wanted to say, I think it's a great idea. It's way better than those portable. Yeah, I could
Yes.
definitely go with that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. One more time, anyone else with any comments, questions? Mr. Pratt, please.
There's 2, you said, right?
2.
2 of them, okay, no, that's it.
at that
You can
point.
see them, they're on the map.
Yeah, just, I saw one.
Here's one here and one here.
At this time, then, if there are no further comments or questions, I would ask the commission to move this item in one way or another.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the commission, I would move that we approve this application Z 22-63 to a site plan modification for two 6x6 by 14 foot by 8 inch restrooms to be added to the YMCA campground per their specifications.
Thank you. Mr. Kame has made that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Pratt seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I would then ask all those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Y'all
Good luck
have a
to
good
you.
night now.
You too.
Yeah. That's it. So neat.
Next item up under new business is B as in Bravo, 5 Obtuse Hill Road, Z-22-67. Deacon Lewis Howe of St. Joseph Church, 163 Wisconsin Road, Brookfield, Connecticut. Site plan modification to replace tent with outdoor pavilion. However, since the agenda was sent out, I believe that there's been an update with some correspondence. I don't know, would we want our secretary to read this into the record, or can we just note that it?
We can just note that the certificate of appropriateness needs to be done by the Historic District. That was done without that, so they need to go to Historic. I believe it's December 1st, they have a meeting, and then they'll be back on the agenda for the December 8th meeting. So I would ask the commission to continue this to the December 8th meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Oh, I would second that it be continued.
Okay.
Well,
You didn't really
Fran
care.
I can't make a
Fran can
motion.
make a
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got into the habit of that.
Sorry.
Well,
Thanks
I-
for helping.
Yeah.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that this be continued until the December 8th meeting. Excuse me, pending Historic District approval.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Kane. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Pratt seconded the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, by nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries. This item will be continued to our meeting December 8th, next month. Thank you. Next item under new business, C as in Charlie, 107 Vale Road, Z-22-69. Anthony Ribeiro of J.R. Associates LLC, 64 Triangle Street, Danbury, Connecticut. It is a request for certificate of zoning compliance for contractor's yard storage of equipment, wood splitting and stacking. Is the applicant here?
Yes, Robert Ryan, 4 Lehmack Ave, Danbury, for Jar Associates.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
I'm sorry, can you spell your last name and repeat that for me?
R-E-I-S.
And your address and that
At 4 Lehmack. I believe this is renewal for a contractor's yard. It's been the same yard for probably 30 years.
Okay. Did you want to say anything or elaborate?
Other than, it's just, yeah, the contractor's yard, storage of equipment, wood, there was a wood splitting, person on site, they had stacked the wood there. That's pretty much it.
So you've filled in the application and sent it in, but was it missing attachments or something? Did I see something along those lines?
I don't know.
Did you want to speak to that, Mr. Lyon?
I will. As a CEO, this was a pre-existing use there. In the past with previous commissions, it's always just been a renewal of a certificate of zoning compliance for wood cutting, splitting. There's a contractor there that stores his forms and equipment, and there's also Sasso who does storage containers. Also note that there is a valid wetlands permit, valid, and they are working on the site with regard to the property too. So that's all I want to say.
But we're not considering the wetlands, of course. We're just
No.
considering the renewal.
The use, the renewal
Okay.
use, correct.
Does any commissioners have any comments or
And
questions
there has been
regarding this?
complaints brought before the commission, I believe, in writing to Ms. Haza too, with regards to the noise and activities going on down there.
Mr. Payne.
Yeah, I had a question. We did have some complaints that came before us, and having split wood myself for many years, I kind of understand how it goes. But could you just talk a little bit about actually, you bring in 8-foot logs, you cut them down, you split them, is that sort of what happens, or?
Yeah, that's exactly
Okay,
what happens, yeah.
because I think they were complaining that, what the complaint was, and I'm not speaking to the validity of the complaint one way or the other, but that wood cutting was not permitted. I don't really see much of a difference between wood splitting and wood cutting, but that was one thing that was a concern. And then the other concern was that I don't think there was a noise concern, but I don't think it had really very much to do with your wood cutting operation. I think it had to do with the trucks, the backup alarms on the trucks. That when the trucks would back up, it would start beeping and multiple trucks beeping. So I guess the question that I would have for you, is there any way that, I understand you can't disconnect the alarms.
Right, you
okay?
can't, that's an OSHA thing.
It's Federal DOT and state DOT would not approve of that, but is there any way that you could, maybe change the flow of operations somewhere where the trucks didn't back up as much when they were dumping or something? I don't know. I understand that it's a difficult question I'm asking.
It is, and the operating hours are, 7 to 4 o'clock.
Okay,
Or Monday through Friday.
all right, and you don't operate on weekends?
No weekends.
Okay,
But again, the beeping, there's not much we can do about that, and,
Yeah.
there's other yards,
sure,
contractors' yards, adjacent to ours.
yes.
That's there too, so.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't even say if it's our beeping or not.
Yeah, that's
you know.
true. I noticed that because I did drive by your property and I did see the trucks moving, but you make a very valid point that there's multiple contractor yards in that area. And they all have construction equipment.
So I can't say if it's our equipment
Okay.
that's making the beeping noise, but
Okay.
I'm sure everybody who has a truck or an excavator, they're gonna have the backup alarms.
Any other questions, Mr. Pratt?
You
Please
said
go
your
ahead.
operational hours were what?
7 to 4, 3:34 is usually the operating hours.
Just Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday.
No weekends?
No
No overtime?
weekends.
No, I'm just asking because that's kind of the complaints were coming in, so
Yeah.
I was curious. So.
Oh,
Thank you.
You're aware of the noise ordinances too, so you're mindful of that, aside from the beeping. I mean, when an industrial, and this has nothing to do with our zoning regs, but in the noise ordinance, when industrial is adjacent to a residential, in this case, there is more stringent noise requirements or reduction. So I don't know if you want to have someone go with a sound meter and just say, okay, yeah, we're good, or not, but,
We can certainly do that.
yeah.
No, that's not a problem. I mean, it is, the majority of the work is on the front of the property and along the road.
Mhm.
Then there's acres and acres and acres that doesn't, because it's all wetlands and nothing
Yeah.
gets touched there. So
Yeah.
it's probably because the leaves are off now, gets a little more echoey
Yeah.
than summertime where the leaves would be on the tree.
Mhm.
Mr. Commissioner, one more.
Mr. Pratt?
You haven't taken any trees down on the property, though?
We're working on our wetlands permit right now.
Okay, but they're all good?
It's brush, mostly brush. There's some drainage issues that was addressed with the wetlands permit that they're currently, doing the work that's approved by the wetlands.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Any other commissioners have any questions, comments for this applicant?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that this will include wood cutting on the property, in addition to the storage of equipment, wood splitting, and wood stacking.
Well, if I may, I did have a question too. Is this an application that needs to be renewed every year?
I believe so.
Yes.
It's a yearly renewal.
So weren't you aware that it had lapsed then? Because that was part of the cease and desist, that it was being operated without a permit.
From what I understand is that they sent some applications in, but then for whatever reasons didn't pay the fee.
Yeah, there was an application that was received, that was a handwritten one last year, that was never processed for some reason. Maybe due to COVID restrictions, I'm not sure why.
And at this time, is there a completed application and a fee paid?
There is.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you. Any further questions?
Just a comment that
Yes,
this is
Mr. Timmerman.
this is an allowed use in the industrial zone.
Thank you. If there aren't any other comments, the chair would be happy to entertain a motion to dispose of this case.
I'd like to make a motion that application Z 22-69 for 107 Vale Road for JR Associates for compliance for a contractor's yard storage of equipment, wood cutting, wood splitting, and stacking be approved.
Is there a second to the motion?
second.
Mr. Komar has seconded Mr. Kame's motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Hearing that there are none, the motion carries. Thank you. Next, thank you. Item up under new business. Item 7D, 52 Merwin Brook Road, Z-2268. Richard Juan III, design review for 750 square feet, in-law apartment addition. Public hearing can be set for December 8th. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. Just set a public hearing for 52 Merwin Brook Road, Z-22-68 for our December 8th meeting.
I would second that motion, Mr.
Motion
Chairman.
is made, Mr. Pratt rather has made a motion, Mr. Kane has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call the motion and ask all those in favor to please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? There are none, so the motion carries. Thank you. Next item under number 7, new business, is item E as in Echo, 10 Chickadee Lane, Z-22-66. Marco V. Diaz Araujo, design review for 770 square foot in-law apartment addition. Similarly, a public hearing can also be set for December 8th, 2022. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing for Z-2266, 10 Chickadee Lane for December 8th, 2022.
Ms. Holmes has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Pratt seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call the motion and ask those in favor, please do signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed by nay. I would only ask Mr. Kame if he intends to vote on this
Yes,
motion.
I'm sorry, I was reading it. Yeah, I do intend to vote yes.
Okay. All those opposed by nay? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kane. Next up, item F, as in Foxtrot, for 101 Park Ridge Road, Z-22-70. Nicholas Yuschak for CCA LLC for design review for a 47,066 square foot office, light manufacturing, warehouse building with associated drives, parking, walks, grading, utilities, and landscaping on parcel 3A. Public hearing can be set for December 8th, 2022. Do we have a motion to set that?
Can I make a motion to set public hearing Z-22-70, 101 Park Ridge Road for December 8th,
We have a motion.
2022.
Thank you. We have a motion for Mr. Komar. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Pratt seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, call the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? That motion carries as well. Thank you. Next item up is item 8, other business proper. A as in Alpha, land use zoning fee schedule. Do we have an update at this time regarding that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have planning and zoning department fee schedules from Danbury, from Bethel, from our town, Brookfield, from Newtown, and from New Fairfield, and New Milford, that I would like to submit to the land use office to have copies made for next time. Between now and then, I will endeavor to get these. Let me just discuss it briefly. Each town does it a little differently. Some towns, like Brookfield, have a very nice planning and zoning department fee schedule. Other towns have a so you sort of have to read through a lot of verbiage to figure it out. So lining them up into a spreadsheet might be a little bit difficult, but what I'd like to do is have these information submitted, copied and given to the commissioners so that they can begin to review this. I will say, just in general, Brookfield is low on some items, high on other items. But I do think it's worth our time to go through and see if we're way out of line on any particular item. That's my update.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kane. Do any commissioners have any questions of Mr. Kane?
Thank you for doing that.
Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Good work.
Thank you.
So we will ask our land use friends if they can distribute those copies to the commissioners. Thank you for that. Next up, number 9, tabled items. We have none. Item 10, commissioner comments and informal discussion. If anyone has anything they'd like to discuss at this time.
Oh, that's right.
I'm not hearing any. So at that point, we will move on to number 11, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Pratt's made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll happily second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Is there any abstentions? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.